Good evening. Welcome to the April 21st meeting of the Edina Board of Appeal and Equalization. This meeting is being held electronically to comply with the Governor's Stay Safe Minnesota order and to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the local board and assessing staff are participating from their homes or offices. Before we begin, if you would like to provide testimony or make an appeal, you can call 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID number 4978528. After connecting to the conference, press star 1 on your telephone keypad to speak during a specific case or at the end when we will hear all other appeals. An operator will mute your line and place you into a queue until it is your turn to speak. Now to the agenda. The first is call to order. The Edina Board of Appeal and Equalization will now come to order. The second item of the agenda is roll call. Jamie, will you please take roll call?
Andrew Ayers.
Present.
Phil Buckbold.
Present.
Ed Krieger.
Present.
Michael McCauley.
Present.
Rhonda Bland.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a quorum and the meeting can come to order. The next item on the agenda is election of a chairperson and a vice chairperson, which is for a one-year term. I will now open nominations for the position of chair and vice chair. We'll need a motion and a second.
I nominate Phil Buckfold for chairman.
I would second.
Phil Buckfold has been nominated for the position of chair. Do we have a Bob? I'm sorry. Do we need to do vice chair right now and then we move into to ratifying it?
We would need you can do the motion has been structured for chair and then vice chair.
Okay.
Otherwise, we can bifurcate it and do the chair as one motion and the vice chair as a second motion.
Okay. Let's move to nominate a vice chair next, and then we'll move through. Do we have a nomination for vice chair?
I'll nominate Ed Craycraft for vice chair.
I'll second that motion. All right. Phil Buckfold has been nominated for the position of chair and Ed Craycraft for vice chair. Are there any other nominations for chair or vice chair? Okay. If there are no other nominations, the nominations are now closed. It has been moved and seconded that Phil Buckfold will serve as chair and Ed Craycraft as vice chair. Jamie, please take a roll call.
Andrew Ayers.
Yes.
Phil Buckbold.
Aye.
Ed Craycraft.
Aye.
Michael McCauley.
Aye.
Rhonda Bland.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion passes. All right, we can move into tonight's meeting. I'll give a brief overview and then we'll talk through the appeals. We are here tonight to receive written testimony and evidence from property owners regarding their January 2nd, 2021 estimated market value or classification. State law requires that all property should be valued at its market value. Market value is the price that would tend to prevail under typical, normal, competitive open market conditions. We are not here tonight to take written testimony on real estate taxes or legislative issues. There are other forms in which those concerns can be addressed. The board will take the cases under advisement and will not make any decisions at tonight's meeting. The board will reconvene on May the 5th to make final decisions on appeals. The board has the authority to raise, reduce, or sustain the market value of each property. The assessing staff will not be completing any on-site inspections of appealed properties this year. Your application, supporting data, and staff review report will be considered when rendering our decision. At the conclusion of the meeting on May the 5th, the assessing division will notify the appellant by letter regarding all of the board's decisions. Appellants who are not satisfied with the board's decision may pursue their appeal to the County Board of Appeal and Equalization or to the Minnesota Tax Court. Board members have copies of the written appeals that were received by Tuesday, April the 20th. The assessor will read each of these appeals into the record. Following the written appeals, we will hear testimony from members of the public that have called in. All right, next, moving on, we'll go through applications received by April the 20th, 2021.
Thank you, Chair Buckfold. Case is number one is Ann and Tim Anderson, and it's regarding a property at 6105 Lincoln Drive, Unit 241. The assessor's value as of January 2nd of 2021 is $258,700. On the owner's application, they did not indicate what their opinion of value was. So if Ann or Tim Anderson are on the line and or like to provide testimony in this case, need to call 800-374-0221 with conference ID 497-8528. After connecting to the conference, press *1 on your telephone pad to speak, and an operator will mute your line and place you in a queue until it's your turn to speak. Because there's a slight delay in the broadcast, we will wait 1 minute before moving on to the next case in case anyone wants to call it in.
Good evening, members of the board. This is Dan Riesig with the Communications Office. At this point, there is no one in the queue to speak for this particular case, so we would advise, based on that delay, to wait about 1 minute. I have 5:39 as my time right now, so if we can go ahead and wait till 5:40 before moving forward, and I'll let you know when that is.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, I have about 1 minute, and we do not have any additional callers for this case.
Thank you, Dan. Case number 2, Rick Nelson, regarding 7241 Ohms Lane. It's an office condominium. The assessor's January 2nd, 2021 market value is $1,821,300, and the applicant did not provide any opinion as to their opinion of market value. So if anyone would like to provide additional testimony in this case, call 800-374-0221 with conference ID 497-8528. After connecting to the conference, press *1 on your telephone keypad to speak. An operator will mute your line and place you into queue until it's your turn to speak. Because there's a slight delay in the broadcast, we'll wait 1 minute before moving on to the next case.
Thank you, Bob. We do have one caller on the line, and it is Mr. Nelson, I do believe. So he is now in the queue. So if the operator can please unmute the line of Richard or Rick Nelson, and he may go ahead and speak once ready.
Hello?
Hi, Rick. We can hear you.
Oh, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, great. I was trying and nobody seemed to be there. So first of all, thank you for affording me this opportunity to speak before you. I did not put the my opinion of assessed value on here for one reason. As you go through the market information that you receive, and I think it's on the third page or so, there is a square footage listed for this particular property of 13,491 square feet. I need to work through that with the assessor. I've attempted before, we just haven't gotten together, but the city's opinion of the square footage of this building is about 1,000 square feet larger than the developer, Ryan Companies. I bought the building from Ryan Companies. I submitted their original rent roll, which shows just shy of 12,400. So that's the reason why I didn't put a valuation per se, because I didn't want it applied against the wrong square footage. So having said that, there are several reasons why I feel that the assessed value of the property is excessive. The last sales of these properties, and I'm not sure if you all are familiar with these properties, they're 14 buildings all developed by Ryan Construction Company. They pretty much look alike. The only differences are the square footages. There are a few buildings that are two-story. Most of them are single-story. Several of us have these as investment properties, so they were multi-tenant buildings. The more recent sales from these properties, there was one in 2018, and I know that's a little dated, but that was $111 a square foot. There was one in January of 2019 for $120 a foot. I believe there's some extenuating circumstances with that. That particular buyer owns a couple of other buildings, and the building that he acquired for $120 a square foot was right next door to the one that he also owns. So from a convenience standpoint, connectivity, having his people there, I feel that he was willing to pay a little more for that property than a market. So that was January of 2019. And then the most recent sale in the properties was December of 2019. And that property sold for $108 per square foot. That was based on public records of information. The other thing that I put together, and it's a part of the package, is I was looking for comparable properties in the immediate area, trying to determine what those properties were valued at. And if you all have the ability to scroll down my application, you'll see my building on the top, and its assessed value for 2021 is $1.8 million and some change. The next building isn't a direct comp, but it is a direct competitor. I say it's not a direct comp only because that building is 98,000 square feet, and some might argue that a larger building merits a lower cost per square foot. But then the other buildings are smaller buildings. I would say I am a real estate professional, 38 years in the business. I would say that any of these buildings that are 40,000, 34, 26,000, if you look at, for example, 7625 Metro, that building is probably the most similar building. If you look at quote unquote quality amenities, it has covered parking, which my building does not have. But if you look, the 2021 market value on a per square foot basis for that building is $100.79. Below that, you have the Creek Ridge buildings. Again, all these buildings are within a mile. You can see that their market value on a per square foot basis is just shy of 105. And then the 5215 Edina Industrial, again, is probably half a mile from my building. Very similar, smaller building, no amenities, those kinds of things. And the building is assessed, again, for 2021 purposes at $96.17 a foot. If you scroll back up for just one quick moment, my building on the top, and I am using for mine, this is this 12,355, again, is, I believe, in dispute with the city. However, it is exactly the square footage that Ryan Companies represented the building to be when I purchased the building. So if we use that number, then we're looking at a market value of $147.41 per square foot. And it's, you look at the quote unquote comparable buildings, you see that that number is, in my opinion, significantly out of line. If we take that $1,821,300 and divide it by roughly the square footage that the city reflects, it's $134.91. And again, we have a discrepancy in the square footage, but even at, call it $135 a square foot, you see based on these other similar properties in the 55439 zip code, all of them within half mile to a mile of my building, I'm not sure how my building could be valued where it is at that number. So that's kind of where we are. There are other market circumstances that I believe would affect it. What's going on in the office real estate market right now. Values, rents are sliding because people don't know who's coming back to work, what corporate users of space will be considering when they come back, how many people will stay at home. None of that bodes very well for anybody that has investment real estate like my property, because for the most part, what it spells is higher vacancies going into the rest of 21 and 22 and who knows beyond that. So final thing I'll say on it, and it kind of supports what I'm trying to communicate to you all with respect to the activity level, what's happening in the market. I have one vacancy right now. That vacancy came up in October of 19, and from October to 19, and then we went into COVID, but from October of 19 through today, I've only had 2 showings in it, and it's a wonderful space, but 2 showings in that period of time, and none of them occurred during year 2020 or 21. So these are challenging times, and I just am hoping that you all will look at this, look at the comps, look at the recent sales in the property, and then come to the same conclusion that I have come to, that this valuation is excessive. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any of me, but I appreciate the opportunity this evening.
Rick, thank you for calling in this evening. Clearly, you've put together a really concise, thoughtful summary of your property, which is no surprise given your deep background in the industry. Let me ask the board, are there any questions for Mr. Nelson? And if anyone raises their hand, I'll be sure to call on you. Ed, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Nelson. My name is Ed Craycraft. I've been on the board for about 6 years. I'm sorry, did you say that you have a alternative per square foot valuation that you believe would be more accurate?
Well, Ed, here's what I think. One, if we can apply to the correct square footage, I look at these numbers and the comparables. For example, I'm looking at 7201 West 78th, and then the 7831 East Bush Lake Road. There's something going on with those numbers. Not sure what it is. I'm not sure if that's a multi-year settlement. I don't think that's necessarily market, but I'm looking at 7625 and looking at that building and saying, if there's a building on here that very closely parallels my building, it's going to be that building. So applied against the correct square footage, which I think is 12.4, I think right around $100 a square foot would represent today's market based on what the city has said these other buildings are at. So hopefully that answers your question. It's a little conditioned, Ed, just because of the square foot issue, but applied to the right square footage, I would think somewhere around $100 a foot would be reasonable.
Thank you.
Questions from any other board members? No? Okay. Well, Rick, once again, thank you for the call this afternoon. Sheila or one of the other city assessors will certainly be in touch with you. Among other things, we'll certainly look at that square footage discrepancy, valuations, financial headwinds, all that good stuff. So please be on the lookout. Sure. And we, as a board, will reconvene May the 5th, at which time we'll review whatever valuation report the city's assessor's office has put together and come to a decision at that time.
Wonderful. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick.
All right. Have a good evening. Goodbye.
You too. Bye now.
Okay, moving on to case number 3, Mark Gazdelen regarding 7201 Ohms Lane, which is an office condo. If Mark or anyone would like to testify on this case, call 1-800-374-0221 with conference ID 497-8528. And then after connecting to the conference, press *1 on your telephone keypad to speak. An operator will mute your line and place you into a queue until it's your turn to speak. Because there's a slight delay in the broadcast, we will wait 1 minute before moving on to the next case.
Members of the board, at this moment, there are no callers in queue. So as you said, if we wait that 1 minute till 5:55, I think we can proceed unless anyone on the call does jump in the queue to speak.
Thanks, Dan.
No one in the queue at this moment, so feel free to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Case number 4 is Jay Lindsay regarding 7240 Metro Boulevard, which is an office condo. If Jay or anyone else would like to provide testimony, call 800-374-0221 with conference ID 497-8528. After connecting to the conference, press *1 on your telephone keypad to speak. An operator will mute your line and place you into a queue until it's your turn to speak. Because there's a slight delay in the broadcast, we'll wait 1 minute before moving on to the next case.
We do have one caller that looks to be affiliated with that address. So if we want to give them a moment to hit *1 to enter the queue if they would like to give testimony, we can go ahead and wait for that to happen. It does appear that no one has hit *1 to enter the queue. So if you're comfortable moving forward, feel free.
Thank you, Dan. Case number 5 is York Plaza Apartments, being represented by Terry Steffen, and the address of the property is 7230 York Avenue South. The assessor's January 2nd, 2021 estimated market value is $52,349,600. And the owner's opinion of value on the application, I think, might be missing some digits. It's indicated at 183,250, so I think that's just a typo. So if Terry or anyone else would like to provide testimony on this case, call 800-374-0221 with conference ID 497-8528. After connecting to the conference, press *1 on your telephone keypad to speak. An operator will mute your line and place you into a queue until it's your turn to speak. Because there's a slight delay in the broadcast, we will wait 1 minute before moving on to the next case.
Currently no callers in the queue, so if we want to wait that 1 minute, I have 5:58 right now, so at 5:59, if we do not have anyone enter the queue, I will pop back on and we can proceed. It does appear we have one caller in the queue. This is Bob Brunmeyer of 7250 Metro Boulevard. So I'm not sure if, go ahead.
That would be our next case.
Okay, then we can, he's no longer in the queue. So I feel at this point you can go ahead and move on.
Hello?
Is this Mr. Brunmeyer?
It is.
Yes, hi. Let me just introduce you to, we've got, just so the board is aware, we only had 5 cases on our agenda. We received 2 applications today that I'm adding to to be read into the minutes for today's meeting. There were some issues getting the application to us on Friday. So those 2 were received today. So case number 6 is Bob Brunmeyer, and it's regarding 7250 Metro Boulevard. And this is an office condo. So Mr. Brunmeyer, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead.
We only had 5 cases on our agenda. We received 2 applications today that I'm adding to to be read into the minutes.
Would you like me to speak?
There were some issues getting the
Is this Mr. Brunmeyer?
It is.
Okay, then feel free to go ahead, Mr. Brunmeyer. It sounds like there's an echo from somewhere in the,
Yes.
in the delay. If you can turn down your speakers or something on your end.
Yep, I'll turn that off. This is Bob Brunmeyer. Thanks for hearing my testimony today. I'm the owner of a office condo at 7250 Metro Boulevard, and we submitted an application based on some assessment that was done by a third party, and based on the comps that they have used for this building, and they came back with some numbers that were significantly less. and in the 1.7 to 1.8 million dollar range. And we also, it's at about 2.2 to 2.3 right now. And so based on what their market research that they use for comps that were included in our application, we feel that, those are third-party professionals that gave us guidance in our application to the appeal, through the appeal process. So based on that and some other market conditions that we've had difficult time leasing up the building. There's subleasing happening in the marketplace today. Significant downward pressure on pricing and the ability for us to bring new clients in, new tenants in. So Rick Nelson just spoke earlier. He's a neighbor of ours, and so the same data that he has used applies to our building as well. We're one of those 14 buildings he mentioned earlier, and so we're looking to that same market value rationale that Rick mentioned as well.
Got it. Anything further, Bob?
No.
Okay. Couple questions from me. My name is Phil Buchvold. I've been on this board for about 4 years now. I don't have your application in front of me, so just kind of broad strokes. It was about $1.7 million, the private valuation you received against a city assessor value of about 2.2 to 2.3.
Yes.
Okay, and then when we heard from Rick, he spoke to a slight square footage discrepancy. Is that something that you've noticed as it relates to your property in that complex as well?
Yes, we've had our architect look at some BOMA standard measurements, and our building is at 18,000 square feet, and the highest we've ever been able to measure it up is about 17.5, 17.6 right in there. So that affects our valuation as well. Okay, thanks.
Appreciate that. No further questions from me. Anyone else on the board have questions? I'll look at screens and call in folks if you do. No.
If you have questions, how might we interface on those? Is that something that's open between now and May, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I was just going to pivot into. Next steps here. Someone from the city's assessor's office, most likely Sheila, will be reaching out, and we'll certainly look into those items that you've raised on your application. And then what will happen between now and May the 5th is Sheila and the city office will pull together a valuation report with a proposed assessed value. This group will reconvene on May the 5th to receive those results and ratify a decision, for lack of a better term.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. Have yourself a nice night.
Okay, so that was case number 6. We did receive an application, and we will provide that to the board along with our staff report. We have one other case that was received today as well, and that would be case number 7, represented by Jeff O. And it's regarding 7261 Ohms Lane, which is an office condo. So if Jeff or anyone else would like to provide testimony regarding this property, call 800-374-0221 with conference ID 497-8528. When you connect to the conference, press *1 on your telephone to speak, and an operator will mute your line and put you into a queue until it's your turn to speak. Because there's a slight delay in the broadcast, we'll wait 1 minute before moving on.
Members of the board, we don't have anyone on for this particular property address. However, Mr. Mark Gazdelin, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name, he is in queue from 7201 Ohms Lane. So depending on how you would like to proceed with that, whether you want to open his line right now and have him give testimony or wait till later in the meeting. Please advise.
Dan, who is it that's on the line?
Right now it is Mr. Mark Gazdelen, and I apologize, I'm probably not pronouncing his name correct, but he is in queue, and he is at 7201 Ohms Lane, not the current 7261.
7201.
Which
Yeah,
looks to have been the third item on the agenda list.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yes, that's fine.
Okay,
Go
then
ahead
if
and
the
connect them.
operator can go ahead and unmute the line of Mr. Marquez Dellin of 7201 Ohms. Thank you.
Hello. This is Mark Gazzadellan from 7201 Ohms Lane.
Hello, Mark. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you, and I'm sorry for the confusion. I called in when you called our case number, but apparently my number didn't go through or something to that effect. I'm part of the same complex that Richard Nelson called in on, as well as Bob Bruner, and what it is a 14 building complex that is basically run by a building owners association. It's not a condominium as such, but it is an association of 14 buildings. I don't believe, maybe I did put a value on my application, but I think a fair value, repeat the testimony given by the other two people that have already testified from our complex. But I think you folks have our building at about 13,420 square feet gross. And my range of value would be about $100 to $111 per square foot, which would give it somewhere between $1,342,000 and $1,489,620. And that's the number that I believe the city had us at effective January 1st of 2019, somewhere in that range. A couple of comments that I would add is that while on the one hand I'm saying times are tough in the market, we're actually at 100% occupancy right now. We're a multi-tenant building. But in order to get there, I had to negotiate a couple of leases at a 32% discount to our normal base rent. So, and I had to do it on a short-term basis with an out-of-town engineering company that's working in Minneapolis right now. So a 32% reduction in our base rent is going to reduce our ROI quite a bit. The second comment I'd make is that as of December 31st, 2021, I'm anticipating a 40% vacancy rate unless something significant happens between now and then. And that's because of the fact that we have 3 different spaces in our lease, or in our building, that are coming off lease, including the short-term ones that I just mentioned. And really the last thing that I would indicate, and certainly in saying it's difficult out there in terms of attracting tenants right now during the COVID situation. And there seems to be a significant oversupply of space, because when we have been able to attract potential tenants into the space through our commercial agent, we've lost a significant amount of them to other buildings, and quite clearly a couple of different people we've shown the building to are only working us so that they can bring numbers back to their present landlord and renew on more favorable terms, at least in my opinion. So I appreciate the time. Those are my comments, and those are my thoughts on valuation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any questions from other members of the board?
I have a question, please.
Thanks, Ed. Go ahead.
Sir, do Have you had any showings for this space to be vacated? And I guess I would ask you how you would expect the board to consider that as a factor, since we don't know for sure that's going to happen, nor do we know what your prospects are for filling that space. And that's all prospective as opposed to a retrospective valuation.
I agree that that is the case. All I'm indicating by saying that we're experiencing weakness in the market, I think, goes to the issue of our return on investment, and I think that would impact the valuation per square foot. So I'm really focusing on the valuation, not the rental market as such, but on how it affects our valuation per square foot. I think the city is proposing in January of 2021 a value of about $125 per foot. Like I say, given the market and given what we think is presently happening in the market, and given the fact that we have in fact reduced our rates, it is impacting our valuation, I think. Not just in the future, but currently, because we've reduced our rates in order to attract tenants.
Thank you.
Any questions from other board members? No? Okay. Well, Mark, thank you again for your call. Thank you for submitting an application. Next steps, Sheila or another member of the city's assessor's office will be in touch, and we'll be speaking to you about the property. What will happen between now and May the 5th when this board reconvenes is the city's assessor's office will be pulling together a valuation report, which we'll review at the May 5th meeting and ratify a decision at that point.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Okay, Chair Buchwald, those are the applications that our office has received. The next part of the agenda is the ability for people that did not submit an application but would like to testify and would like to call in. So we would open it up for people calling in at this point. So if anyone else in the community would like to appeal a property value, they should call in now. Callers will have up to 10 minutes each to speak. If you'd like to make an appeal, call 800-374-0221 with conference ID 497-8528. After connecting to the conference, press star 1 on your telephone keypad to speak. An operator will mute your line and place you into a queue until it's your turn to speak. Please give your name, address, and telephone number when you speak. Because there's a slight delay in the broadcast, we'll wait to see if anybody calls in before moving on to the next item on the agenda.
Members of the board, no one in the queue currently, so as mentioned, we can wait a minute or two to move forward. And I'll come back on the line and give an update.
Thanks, Dan.
I have it at right at about a minute, and we do not have any additional callers. So if you're comfortable moving forward, feel free.
Bob, are you comfortable moving forward?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, then the last item on the agenda will be to recess this meeting until May 5th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Before we do so, are there any further questions from the board? Looks like Rhonda has raised her hand. Yes, Rhonda.
Yes, I just have a question for clarification referring to case number 5. I'm looking at the owner's opinion of estimated market value. I'm thinking, based on what I'm looking at, that that's really a market valuation for each unit, not meant to be the whole. As I look at the city's document, the valuation is at 200,573, and this is shown to be 183. So I think that's what
Okay.
this person is asking for. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
Really good call out, Rhonda. I didn't see that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. Well, I have a question for you. Is there a motion to recess this meeting, which will reconvene electronically on Wednesday, May 5th at 5:30 p.m.?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Rhonda. Jamie, will you please take a roll call?
Andrew Ayers,
Aye.
Phil Buckbold,
Aye.
Ed Craycraft,
Aye.
Michael McCauley,
Aye.
Rhonda Bland.
Aye.
So moved. The meeting is recessed until May 5th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.